This is a conversation between friends.
None of what is said here should be taken as legal advice.
We are not experts in any way.
Take what resonates and leave the rest. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Another day, another episode. 1 day away from the aliens invading. That is my prediction coming into the new president taking his office. So we'll see. In any case, so in terms of topics for the day, we have on the foundation section, hypergamy. So what is that? And kind of explaining how that works in today's society. Fitness, finding mentors at the gym, specifically dealing as a member. Kind of like, talking to trainers, talking to the more advanced people or the more advanced lifters in the gym, things like that. And on the finance, we have Inauguration Day and news updates. And also, we have a secret topic coming up, so stay tuned for that one. All right.
Well, the secret topic is interesting for the day, but let's get started with foundations, hypergamy. So you're more expert on this, so can you explain, and then I can just build from there?
Sure. So, not necessarily an expert, but I think I have a better understanding than
You
right?
got a better understanding.
So, hypergamy, traditionally, it was the kind of like the idea of families trying to marry, their children off to wealthier families to essentially just establish a better economic standing, social standing, etc. And this usually was specifically dealing with the women, and let's say a family that's of lower class marrying a guy that's of a higher class to kind of elevate the status, kind of balance things out. Essentially, back in the day, that's essentially what was power. Recognition, your name. Today it's still the same, but now it's more of like a monetary aspect that gives you power, right? So think about like the richest people on the planet. Usually these people are probably one of the most powerful people. Not necessarily always the case, but that's kind of the idea. So hypergamy back in the day was that. Today, hypergamy is now been changed or misconstrued a little bit, but now the concept is women or men's innate or kind of just natural instinct to want to have a better partner constantly. So hypergamy is basically the belief that specifically women, but men also do this too. Women want the best option, and they will always try to seek the best option no matter what. No matter how long you've been together, no matter what you guys have together, what you've built together, they will always want to do better if they can. They will always try to find a better partner, whether that be due to resources, whether that be due to looks, protection, whatever the case is. So yeah, that's where definition is.
So where I can add up to this topic is that we, men and women, we have different criteria when it comes to what hypergamy is for each individual ones, right? Just there's a different criteria, of course. For example, for a man, it's very straightforward, very, very simple. For us, is just if she's pretty, she's ambitious, she's a good candidate. Whereas for a woman, I think looks don't really matter on the aspect, on their criteria. It might play a role, but it's not as important as for men. And then it goes more like, can he support the family? Is he going to be like a good partner for life or something? So I think everybody is trying to do better, we are trying to do better than our parents did, and that's what we hear. That's what, in my opinion, that's why I'm in this country, trying to kind of do better and take advantage of the opportunities that my parents have given me. And of course, I will want to choose a partner that is gonna bring the best of me, and it's not gonna drag me down. Maybe now it's a little bit different than back in the days with royalty and power and money. Or maybe it's not for some people, but now some back in the days, they will marry their own cousin just to keep the wealth within the family. That's what rich people do or used to do. Well, I don't know if they still do it.
Probably do still.
Still do, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic, like hypergamy. I never heard that term before until you mentioned that today. And yeah, I'm curious to see where that takes us on this.
Okay.
Can we put a little bit more on it?
So yeah, so we can kind of jump wherever we want, but so here's the thing. One of the biggest issues with hypergamy nowadays is the fact that there is a subset of individuals that call themselves involuntary celibates or incels. And these guys, or these group of guys, they can't really get any kind of sexual attraction or attention from women. And that is essentially why they're involuntarily celibate. So they just can't have sex because nobody wants to have sex with them. So that's a subset. Go ahead, you were to say something?
Wait, so they can't, like, they can have sex, or they don't
They
want
can. They can, it's just nobody wants to have it with them.
Oh, okay, got it.
So that's incels, right? And then there's another group, another subset, that these guys are called MGTOW, right? So men going their own way. So these guys can be divided into two groups, where one is really nihilistic. And by that, I mean, they believe that women aren't worth dealing with. So essentially, there's just like women, they have this innate concept going on in the back of their mind called hypergamy, where they will constantly seek better. So why deal with them? Because they will never be loyal to you, because they're always going to try to find something that's better than you if you end up not being the best choice. So, and you know, we've talked about in the past, you know, somebody is going to be better at something than you are, right? There's always going to be somebody that's going to be outperforming you at some point, whether it be now or in the future, we don't know, but there's always somebody that's better that comes along. So that's their belief. So like, what's the point of dealing with women if they're just going to eventually end up leaving you? And then there's the other subset of guys that are like, well, perhaps this is women's nature to always want to find better, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to kind of just give up and not deal with women altogether. So, you know, just take it for what it is. Like, take that as being the truth. Women will always want to do better. And, well, try to become the best version of you and compete. Because at some point, this is a game. And if you want to play, well, it's not like you have a choice. You're going to play this game. And it's either you compete or you stop existing and your genetics kind of just die out. And yeah. Oh, so there's one thing I forgot to mention also with the incels and the MGTOWs. So within those two like groups, they kind of coincide in such a way where a subsect of it deals with these dolls. Maybe you've seen them, right? Like these dolls that are like, they're supposed to mimic women, but obviously they're not real, right? But they're slowly but surely starting to become more and more realistic. And these dolls are supposed to, you know, replicate what it would be like to be with a woman without there actually being a woman there. So, yeah.
I don't know how you know all this stuff. Obviously, never heard of these terms, but I mean, kind of makes sense. But at the same time, I mean, we are here. We part of this, you know, nature. Like in nature, like men and women are meant to be together, like regardless. And for well, it depends on your preference, of course, but but like, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with like trying to do better for yourself and do better for, you know, try the best. I mean, get the best for you. Like, everybody got options, right? And you, of course, gonna pick the best option of them all. So that's true, and this goes for men and women as well. Like, it just happens. Now, one thing that you mentioned is that that those type of men, I don't remember which group was it, but they don't want to
incels, MGTOWs, or the other guys.
MGTOWs. Okay. Like they don't want to deal with women because they don't want to be like in a constant competition with other guys, you know, to like get the traction of the woman or get the attention of the woman. And that's not how it should be. Like, honestly, like if you want to do better, do it for yourself and be better because you want to be better, you know, like rather than if the woman sticks with you for the the long haul, or like the long term, it's because she wants to be there, and that means, you're doing the right things. But you shouldn't do the right things because you want her to stay. Do you understand, like, the
Exactly.
type of logic?
Yeah,
But
100%.
but yeah, I agree with that. And we talked about this yesterday. It was yesterday podcast about like the life being a game. And regardless we want or not to be part of the game, we are forced to be in here. Now we choose the rules to follow, and like to that we create as we live every day, and it's a random. But you always should be like in competition with yourself rather than with other men outside of the box. Because remember, like, um, actually, I can just kind of put an example right now. It's me applying for like jobs like after graduation, and I've been on panels with like candidates who are more talented than I am, but at the same time I'm not comparing myself with them because I know I have something to bring to the table that they're not gonna have. For example, in my case, I'm very confident about my communication skills with people. Even though sometimes I use that whatever here, I'm still practicing, and that's something that I better myself every day. So I'm never thinking about like how can I, compete to them and be a more ideal candidate to the recruiters. And one question that I always ask the recruiters is like, what's something that you like a background that you look in a candidate? And a lot of times they don't really specify the technical aspects of the for this specific job, but rather like the quality of person that you are, and the quality of the person that they most of the times they kind of don't want to say it, but they kind of filter it out, or just like like, how you call that? They
It's kind of sub-communicated in a way.
Yeah, like in a way they just so communicate it like in the low. You know how we say? They said that a person who is doing better and always doing better than he did before. It's always like that. It's always the case that they want something who it's think outside the box, and it's not really competing, but working together to innovate.
Yeah.
And that's what life is. That's regardless of where you are in life. It's always about to innovate and see the best version of yourself. And of course, like when it comes to hypergamy, I feel like yes, that's something that is just part of society, and we just have to deal with it. But at the same
Yeah, man.
time, if the girl leaves you for another man, or maybe the guy leaves you for
Another
uh,
woman.
for another woman, or whatever the case is, you shouldn't put the pressure or the blame on you that you were not enough, because maybe they had a different story. Maybe they left you for a completely different reason. Maybe it was just that chemistry was not there and the partnership was not there.
Or,
All right.
sometimes it starts off as like you guys have it, and then it slowly fades away. And,
Yeah.
that speaks to maintaining a good relationship over time, because relationships do require work. And
Totally.
if you're not consistently trying to be the best version of yourself, pushing for better, being on your purpose, people start losing respect for you. People stop seeing you for who you were and start seeing you for what you are now. And that could just be somebody that's complacent, that doesn't really want to try anymore, etc. So that's one of the things. You're always in competition, and the biggest competition is yourself. So you have to constantly be trying to be better than the day you were before. So going back to the MGTOW thing, so I just remember what the two groups were. So the nihilistic one, those guys are called black pillars. So people that believe in the black pill. So we talked about the matrix before, the blue pill and the red pill. So they take that concept and they apply it to this field. So the black pill are the guys that are nihilistic, and then the other guys that just kind of accept the reality for what it is the red pill. And then the guys that are, the simps and the betas, so quote unquote, those are the blue pills.
I don't think we talk about that in this podcast yet. Let's save that for a topic for tomorrow or the next day. I don't think we have talked about blue pill.
No. And then there's one more, which is the purple pill, which is the crossover between the red pill and the blue pill.
So in the middle.
So basically, that would be the kind of guy that knows everything of that, like the red pill is and hypergamy and how women are, but
Uh,
also still has kind of idealistic tendencies to being in a relationship or just like
oh,
what women's nature is, right?
mhm,
So they kind of like they expect the worst, but they're hoping for the best,
mhm.
essentially. That's what the purple pill is. So it's a nice crossover to kind of be right in the middle as opposed to just being on one end of the spectrum or the other end.
I mean,
So yeah, man. Yeah, go
ultimately,
ahead.
when it comes to these labels, they're just labels. So if
Yeah, 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 for sure.
don't
Like
take it at
don't
heart
take it
if
too
you
seriously.
resonate with one of these. You can definitely change, and you should better yourself, whichever you choose to be, and it's up to
Yeah,
you.
don't believe that personalities are static because
Yeah, no,
you can always change. One day you can be an asshole, and the other day you can be a good person. It's not always the same.
yeah, absolutely.
What was that?
What?
Shit, I forgot. There was this saying or quote. Like, obviously, this is not to advocate any kind of bad nature or like to be a Nazi or anything, but the people that kind of just accepted what the Nazis were doing during that period of time in Germany, and not,
Mhm,
it wasn't necessarily that those people were bad. It's just they didn't really realize what humans were capable of. Right?
mhm.
We are capable of the best things and the worst things. The same human can be on one day the greatest human on the planet, and on the next day the biggest monster on the planet. So there's always a balance that we have to strike with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Humans are surprisingly capable of doing good things and bad
Unspeakable
things.
horrors and ultimate and greater, like, truths and good things, but you never
Mm.
know. You never know.
All right. To conclude on the topics of hypergamy, what do you think? Like, does it exist to the day?
I do think I believe I do believe that. I do believe it exists, and
Mhm,
it shouldn't be there as a negative concept or idea. It should
mhm,
be there to push you to be better, because if you're just stagnant and not doing anything with your life, the consequences are that if you're in a relationship with a woman, she'll leave you because you're not doing anything. You're not aspiring to be better. And
mhm.
if it's in the opposite direction with the woman, same thing. If your guy is just like, he's doing his best and you're kind of just sitting there and going along for the ride and not trying to do anything, or not trying to better yourself, not trying, just literally just taking advantage of the situation and just hoping that it all works out for you, eventually he'll leave you because you want to be with somebody that's on your level. So
Right. Yeah, definitely does apply for both men and women. So, it's not, it's strictly just for men to do better and be the best of yourself, right? But it also applies for women, because if a woman is just there, and nowadays especially that women trying to be more independent and all this stuff and like that, and there's more opportunities as well for women, and even if it's not like a career wise, they have something that they very passionate about, maybe whatever it is, and they going towards that, it it's more attractive for a woman, for a man as well, like to
to think
be with
about
a
it,
woman.
do you want to be with somebody that, like, it was man, like it was mediocre? Or do you want to be with somebody that, like, man, everybody looks up to this person, everybody
Mhm.
aspires to be like this person? I am with somebody that's a winner, right?
Absolutely, yeah, that's absolutely true. All right, so let's move on to the secret topic, that talk. All right.
Why
That
do you say it
talk.
like that? Nah, talk.
That talk. All right, that talk. I never actually had the talk with my parents,
I had it recently and it was weird.
and I never had it to find out my own way. Had to pave my way, on my own. I had to build it on my own. But
Well,
yeah, what was your experience like? Because I know you mentioned.
very, very strange. So before I even had the talk, I was kind of already, like, sexually active and all.
Hmm.
Um, but more to the point, so my experience with the talk was interesting because it happened somewhat recently, and it's interesting because the way, so I had to talk with my father, and the talk was it was interesting because the way he brought up the concepts of like how to have a good relationship, he compared it to like a business. He said, and you've mentioned this before, right? A
Marriage.
relationship is like a business, right? A marriage is like a business, and the business is as good as the communication between the people within that business, right? The openness, the ability to kind of just, talk things out and make sure that you guys are on the same level. It's not like somebody's up here, somebody's down here, and you guys can't even match up in the middle because you have no idea what the other person is thinking. So that's one aspect to it. And that's just on the communication aspect, right? And then we jump over to the sex, right? That's where the talk begins. So one thing that my father mentioned was, hey man, so you got to make sure you're hitting it right, because like it's easy for you to finish, because for guys it doesn't really take that much, right? But for a woman it depends. All women are somewhat different. Not all of them are going to just be able to be pleasured by just doing the most basic thing. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more extra work, some extracurricular activities, right? And sometimes that might or might not incorporate some toys. I don't know. It depends on the woman and the way she kind of, brought up, or she brought herself up in that way. So, find those things that pleases your woman, and stick with that, and try to do new things from time to time just to keep things fresh, because you don't want things to get stale and boring. And yeah, then it's just like, because if you don't do it, somebody else will, and then that's a situation where, if you try to save or salvage that relationship, you guys aren't really on good terms, you guys are keeping secrets from each other, or it can become a relationship where you end up becoming like a cuck, right? Where your woman is like, hey, I'm gonna go out with the girls all night, and ends up like hooking up with the guy later on in the evening, and you're kind of just there sitting at home all alone because you want to save this relationship. You don't really want things to end, because hypothetically, let's say you guys have children together, or you feel like you can't find anybody else, so you're just going to stay committed to this woman. When in a situation like that comes down to like self-respect. You got to be able to walk away from situations like that, because at that point it doesn't even matter. Like nobody's going to respect you at all.
Wait, was your present when your dad told you this?
No, not the. So my dad was present, or my girl was present when we were doing the communication aspect.
Okay. That's funny. That's actually interesting. I definitely like plan to have that talk with my kids, because I feel like, especially no at your age, so not when you're 22 now.
122. That was super late, bro, and I was already way too sexually active, man. Like at this point, I could have had a child. Like, hey, son, let's have the talk when you already have a son. Too late.
Definitely, I feel like that talk should be when you're like almost about to get into puberty, like maybe 13, not even 13, 12, 13 years old. You should start, talking to your children. It will be like, regardless, man or woman, they both are gonna, go through that phase, and they eventually gonna be sexually active, and they're still like, feeling that fucking, what you call it, school loves and stuff, like you start getting your first crushes, escaping, everything that teenagers do, going to party, drinking alcohol, and all these topics should be included when, during that age, before high school, I think, because high school, that's when your mind kind of opens
goes to shit.
To like, it just goes right, and you get exposure to a lot of things too by your peers, movies, shit, like for
now
me,
the internet,
and yes, and the internet nowadays, that internet, because I remember when I was a kid, I did have to use like magazine.
You really, dude?
Yeah,
I got introduced to like porn when I was in 8th grade. So that was like what? Jesus, that was like almost 10 years ago. That's when I was first introduced to porn on the website.
Internet was not big like that.
No, it was. It was just like the porn, and finding it was an issue back then, right?
Right. We didn't know what incognito web was, that was not a thing yet. Well, we can leave that topic for another day as well. But going back to the talk, very important, very crucial too. If you are a parent, to tell your kids about that, because they're gonna start experiencing with or without your knowledge. Might as well be that you gave them the best advice, because also they're going to go and find this information by themselves, and maybe sometimes the information that they get is not going to be the correct one or the right one, or maybe not the best of it, or maybe they're just gonna get partial information about how it works and stuff like that. Because I remember when I first had to put a condom, like I was like,
How do I do this?
how the fuck I do this? But nah. And even like I had sex ed class on my I think on my middle school, but I barely pay attention on that because I was just new to
Busy
this
playing.
country, and I had like few days on it, like few months
Mm.
on it, because I just moved to this country as well. So
Gotcha.
very important that you educate your kids and you have the talk. The talk is one of those things, unavoidable topics that you have to go. I'm glad I had that.
Otherwise, you risk, saying, having that talk way too late, and then the whole situation
Oh
can
yeah.
already be messed up, right? So
Mhm.
definitely, the earlier the better. Just try to find a good time, so that's just not
Absolutely.
it's not too weird.
Absolutely. And actually, I kind of lie on that. I did have a talk, but it wasn't a talk. It was with my uncle. He mentioned
Mm.
some of these topics, like to the surface, but it wasn't like in depth. Like my dad telling me like, do this and do that, don't do that or whatever.
Make sure
But
you
I'm glad
finger
that
her this way with this technique.
no, that's too much. That's too much. Anyways,
You
I'm
gotta
glad
make
that
sure
you
you.
practice. Yo, I saw this video like I saw this video somewhere that says like, oh, I came, and then the guy is like, oh, I show you guys how to do it, and the guy is showing it in a piano, like put this finger right here, put this finger right here, and this two right here, and then
Yep,
just
that's it.
press. That time. Anyways, let's move on. Fitness, finding mentors at the gym. So you can expand on that one, because
Sure. So it kind of goes back to the things we talked about before, right?
Mhm.
But we've talked about before about like asking people questions at the gym, right? Like the types of questions you ask and how you go about asking them. So this jumps seamlessly into that, right? So you find these people at the gym, or you see these people at the gym that, you see them lifting heavy, or you see them doing some cool stuff like some calisthenic skills, right? So like, they're doing those handstand push-ups, or they're doing muscle ups, or they're doing some crazy shit. And you're like, man, I would really like to learn how to do something like that.
Mhm.
So these people can start becoming those mentors that we're talking about in this topic. These are the people that you're going to start trying to gather or gain some information from them to see if, they can help you to be like what they're doing, trying to facilitate whatever it is that you want to learn.
Mhm.
So going back to that, these people are always going to be everywhere, right? It just really
Mhm.
depends on the time of day that you go in. So you find that person, or maybe a couple people, because sometimes it's
Mhm.
not just one person, and you again try to strike up a conversation, try to just be normal and try to be friendly, but ask questions like, hey man, so I saw that I saw the exercise you were doing, that was pretty cool. Is there any way I can like pick your mind about that? Like I would be really interested about learning how you got to where you are, right? And you'd be very hard pressed to find that people are going to be like, nah, man, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I'm here to just work out and leave. If these people have put in a lot of time and effort into learning these skills, like being able to lift very heavy and these specific exercises, or learning how to do these very specific and strenuous calisthenic moves, take hundreds of hours to learn and practice, I'm sure they're more than willing to kind of just talk to you about it and kind of give you an idea as to how you can go about doing it as well. Um, and then from there, a lot of it is going to come down to you, right? It's not like they're going to take you right under their wing and they're going to just show you how to do everything. You have to put in the effort. But if you want to train with these people, then you're going to have to, make an effort in terms of making sure you're there when they're there, making sure that, you can help them in some way in order for them to teach you and show you the tricks and the moves. Um, So yeah, I think that pretty much covers that.
Right. So when it comes to like finding mentors or just learning from somebody else, like you mentioned, it's hard for somebody to say no, especially if they're good at it. They're more willing to like teach you because it just feels good. You know, it makes them feel. It gives them that fulfillment. Like it's like me working as an instructor or what's it called? Volunteering as an instructor as well to teach little kids of my knowledge. It just feels good to pass on the knowledge that it took, it was hard work for you to learn, and maybe you want to ease that weight for other people as well. So yeah, I agree that people are going to be willing to teach you, but you definitely have to put the work on like kind of like making your presence be felt and vibing with the person as well to a personal level, to a more intimate level, like like you want to become friends, you want to befriend the person, and especially kind of seek the opportunity and ask politely, say like, hey, I want to achieve some of the goals that you have already achieved. I want you to help me get those. And this everything can be sparked by just like a simple question asking, for example, just asking to spot you, or asking whatever it is, randomly. And that's really gonna force you to get out of the comfort zone and also be part of like a little, kind of like a little club. You know how like in colleges and universities we have clubs? So think about the gym being the university, and these little groups that there are, they're going to be like little clubs, and you'll be part of it, part of the community. Eventually, all of it is the community. The gym itself is the community, but then you're going
Right.
to have a specific groups for people who would train heavy weights, calisthenics, or just cardio, or whatever it is, whatever niche you can find within the gym. That's where you want to find people that can help you and mentor you as well. But yeah.
So one last thing to add on.
Mhm.
Sometimes these people are actually literally trainers, right?
Right.
They might not be dressed as trainers for the gym, but they can be trainers. Sometimes these people are like online trainers. So one of the
Mhm.
things that, the only way that they wouldn't mind teaching somebody is if you pay them for their time. And,
Right.
that speaks to having value. So
Mhm.
sometimes if this person is as good as they seem to be, you might have to pay for that time. So it could be as small as literally just buying them a cup of coffee. Be like, hey
Mhm.
man, I would really appreciate if you were to just sit and talk with me for a little bit, or just show me some of the moves. I would definitely wouldn't mind buying you a cup of coffee, or buying you this thing, or an energy drink, or a pack of energy drinks, or whatever. Or you start paying for those sessions. Like maybe like, hey man, would you mind if I paid you for like 1 hour of your time? Say it's
Mhm.
something like around $50 or something like that, and you show me some basic moves here and there. That way I can kind of get a good idea of where I should begin, and then you take it from there.
Right. By nature, people or us humans are traders. Like by nature, that's literally how we survive. Like since prehistoric, we always be trading. In this case, you can actually trade a skill. So if you're really good at something, for example, if you invest on the market, or you're knowledgeable about something that you can teach this person, you can actually interchange this set of skills. So maybe you can offer him your help to do something. Maybe he's really good at calisthenics, to be like, if you're a photographer or you're a videographer, be like, hey, I can help you creating great content for you. And most of
Hmm.
the time, like these type of people, they're gonna take the help because
Yeah.
they don't want to pay for a videographer. Those are expensive, and sometimes doing it yourself can get annoying. Like I've seen people in the gym doing it. Like they bring the little, the holders for the smartphones, and they do it themselves. But it's much better if you just like help them like paint, and you
Yeah.
eventually get more skills, and you see how they do it, and they're gonna it's an exchange of
Hmm.
talent, exchange of ideas, and that's what we are, traders. Cool. Anything else to add up?
No, the last point you added there was perfect. Adding
Perfect.
trading skills for skills. Yep.
All right. So now to Wednesday the 20th. Uh, Trump, not Trump. President Trump is getting kicked out of the office, and Biden is taking on. What's your intake on
Hmm.
this? How do you see the markets reacting to it? We saw the markets on a really good stand today, very positive. But what's your prediction for tomorrow?
Yeah, man. I mean, I would imagine that I don't think much would change. If anything, like Democrats taking the office now, maybe that'll boost more tech companies, perhaps, in terms of
Hmm.
giving them a leg up. But I don't really see too much change happening. Like when we started the podcast, I was saying aliens, so maybe we get that once he gets inaugurated.
Maybe.
But besides that, I think everything should be pretty good, pretty solid. Nothing too crazy.
Right. Well, the oil industry, in my opinion, is going to take a hit tomorrow because President Trump, he was in favor and a huge advocate for oil companies,
Hmm.
whereas Biden, he had a really clear positions that he was transitioning. Oh, it was going to be one of his points or one of his big goals for his time in the office to transition to environmental friendly so energy transit things.
Hmm.
Wow. So I expect that oil and energy take a hit tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. Now on other aspects, I don't know if you saw like the pictures of the Capitol Hill or around the Capitol Hill. It's like full of flags. I think that's a
Hmm.
good way to kind of like not have everybody there and kind of still feel the presence that people are there. Because like back in the days, that was a full, when Barack Obama got initiated, the whole little park was entirely full. When President Trump was initiated, it was kind of half empty, but it was interesting to see that. Now, one thing too, Airbnb took this matter to the next level. They became to kind of not accept bookings and be flexible with cancellations if you're there for the inaugurations. So as I read this, I heard this on Yahoo Finance that they're taking measurements to not have people there, like not being rentable during tomorrow and during the rest of the week. Whereas Expedia, they're same thing. They're being flexible about it. They're saying like, okay, if you had a previous booking, you can cancel it, but they're trying not to be cautious, because there's a lot of rumors that there might be like a civil war going on when this happens. So you never know. Big companies are trying to be, cautious about that as well. All right. In other news, anything to add up regarding tomorrow before I
No,
move on?
man. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see what ends up happening. Hopefully, it's it's smooth transition and we can
Mhm.
keep going and try to make new highs and just keep everything stable.
Absolutely. Now the vaccine, whereas the vaccine, where we stand with this pandemic, in the U.S., the governor of Oregon, Minnesota, and Colorado have criticized the Trump administration for sowing confusion after they found out their state will receive fewer doses than expected under the CDC guidelines. New York Andrew Cuomo is exploring his estate, if his estate, so here in New York, can buy vaccines directly from Pfizer. Now, in addition, more help is actually on the way. According to Dr. Fauci, said that two more vaccines, AstraZeneca and Johnson and Johnson, could be approved within weeks. So within the next week, we might see two new vaccines on the market. On Norway, after at least 33 nurses, home residents died after receiving the COVID vaccine, health authorities said there's no evidence that deaths were connected with receiving the shot, as the residents were already seriously ill prior to being vaccinated. Or maybe
Well,
it can be just a cover up. Like you never know. You
maybe,
gotta be
maybe.
skeptical. France,
Yes.
let's go to France. The country is running significantly behind other wealthy nations in its vaccination program, only administering 422,000 doses in more than 3 weeks. Per the Washington Journal, Washington WSG, France has one of the more vaccine skeptical populations. So they're very skeptical over there. I wouldn't be
Oh.
surprised. I mean, a lot of people are skeptical, but it seems like France they're taking the lead on that. We
Hmm.
go to Brazil. regulators in the world's 6th most populous country approved the use of coronavirus vaccines from AstraZeneca and China's Sinovac. Wow. Neighboring countries, Chile and Argentina, have already begun immunizing people. Something like that. All right. That's an interesting topic. We see the vaccine, is spreading around in big quantities. This drove huge gains for Pfizer because they were the first on the market. But we will see. According to few analysts, we might see an opening by mid-fall if like I think it was like 80% of populations get vaccinated or gets immunized, but it's still there are concerns about the new strain of and the new variant of the coronavirus. Last but not least on my list for the news, this I found very interesting. Virgin Orbit successfully launched a rocket into orbit from a 347 aircraft. J.Y. Lee, hear this out. So South Korea's most prominent businessman and vice chair of Samsung was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison following a retrial of a bribery case.
Oof.
That's gonna affect Samsung in some way. We'll see how that goes.
100%.
In last but not least, Bill Gates is now the country's top farmland owner, according to the Land Report. So Bill Gates is in everywhere, man. I wonder why he's doing that. He's taking advantage for sure right now, with the market so low.
Well, clearly.
Real estate.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's acquiring farmland specifically, though.
So it speaks to maybe something he's doing for the future.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Gates always have kind of like visions ahead of time. Like even he proposed about, the U.S. not being ready for a pandemic. And I don't know if you ever heard this interview of Bill Gates talking about like a future pandemic. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. And look at us now. Like he saw this coming in.
Well, there it is.
It is what it is. All right. That's pretty much it for today. I would say peace out.
Peace out.
What the is we doing?